I ultimately had to demand my engagement ring back from my fiancé and change the locks on my own house, and it all started with what should have been the happiest moment of our lives. For 2 years, my relationship with Chloe felt perfect. At 32, I thought I'd finally found my person in her, a 30-year-old woman with whom I seemed exceptionally compatible. We shared what I believed to be the same core beliefs and morals. So, about 7 weeks ago, I proposed. She said yes, and in that moment, I was on top of the world, convinced it was the happiest day for both of us. I had no idea that the second that ring slid onto her finger, a switch would flip, and the woman I loved would be replaced by a complete stranger. Less than a week after the proposal, the shift was jarring. I came home from work one evening to find 6 women I had never seen before lounging in my living room. Chloe introduced them, and I was immediately confused. I had met her 2 best friends, Megan and Olivia, over a year and a half ago, so why was I just now meeting this new group? Chloe's explanation was unsettling. She said she wanted to make sure we were a sure thing before introducing me to her inner circle. Liam found it strange, but he couldn't have known that this wasn't just an introduction. It was the beginning of the end, a deliberate unveiling of the person he never knew he was engaged to. The whole scene felt off. It was a weeknight, and they were plowing through my wine collection with alarming speed. While Chloe technically still had her own apartment, she stayed with me so often that this was effectively her home too. That made it even more infuriating when they eventually left, leaving behind 4 empty bottles of expensive rose without so much as a thank you. I tried to talk to Chloe about it, gently suggesting that having uninvited guests over on a weeknight wasn't ideal, but she just brushed me off. It wasn't a discussion, it was a flippant dismissal. In the weeks that followed, this became the new normal. Chloe went out with the girls constantly, and when they descended on my house, twice without any warning, they treated me like hired help. They would just sit there, shaking their empty wine glasses at me, expecting a refill as if I were their personal butler. One commentator on my story perfectly captured what was happening, noting that Chloe likely kept these friends hidden because she knows how terrible they are and how terrible she is with them. She put on quite a show to get the ring, and now that she thought she had you locked down, she can show her true colors. After the 4th time this happened, I put my foot down and told her I was buying a locked wine rack. Her only response was to call me no fun. Things only got worse. In an attempt to smooth things over, Chloe decided the 7 of us should all have a nice dinner together, claiming we'd just gotten off on the wrong foot. The dinner was an interrogation. The 6 of them relentlessly prodded me about my finances, my career, my house, every material aspect of my life. Yet, any time I tried to ask one of them a question, they would give a vague, deflective answer. The conversation took a darker turn when they started discussing modern relationships and jealousy. To my absolute shock, Chloe, who had always been vehemently against even being friends with exes and was staunchly monogamous, suddenly suggested we shouldn't be too hasty on such matters. It was a complete 180 from everything she'd professed for 2 years. This revealed Chloe's greatest flaw, a desperate need for validation from a toxic audience, a trait that would ultimately cost her everything she claimed to want. The night culminated in the ultimate act of disrespect. The bill arrived, a hefty sum for 8 people at a nice restaurant. Chloe took the check, smiled sweetly, and slid it directly in front of me, announcing it should be together. I stared at her, then at her 6 friends, who were all watching me with smug, expectant looks. "You can't be serious," I said, my voice low. She argued, but I wasn't having it. I pulled out cash for my meal and my drink, placed it on the table, and walked out, leaving them to figure out the rest of their bill. For days, she bombarded me with texts calling me toxic and fragile, but whenever I pushed back, she'd suddenly pivot, offering a weak apology and blaming her behavior on stress at work. The whole situation was insane. The final straw came the following Monday. I was at my desk when I got a notification from my Nest doorbell. I checked the live feed and felt a surge of rage. It was Chloe and one of her new friends, letting themselves into my house and walking out with my set of golf clubs. These weren't just any clubs, they were an expensive set my father had gifted me. I called her immediately. My voice was shaking with anger as I told her to return the clubs. Now, she had the audacity to try and gaslight me. "But you promised to lend the clubs to her boyfriend, remember?" she said, her voice dripping with false innocence. That's when I snapped. "I never said that, Chloe. You know I didn't." The value of those clubs makes this a felony. You and your friend have 1 hour to bring them back, or I'm calling the police." She kept insisting I had given her permission, and I just told her to cut the crap. In that moment, the power dynamic shifted irrevocably. By drawing a hard line and threatening real-world consequences, I shattered the illusion Chloe had carefully constructed, forcing her out of her manipulative fantasy. Less than 45 minutes later, another doorbell notification. It was Chloe and her friend, returning the clubs. On her way out, the friend made sure to flip a middle finger directly at the camera. When I got home, I found the expensive clubs dumped unceremoniously on my living room floor. Chloe was there, and she immediately tried to start in on my toxicity again. I cut her off. "If I had any idea this is who you really are," I said, my voice cold, "I would have never, ever proposed." That finally seemed to get through to her. The smugness vanished, replaced by panic. She started crying, begging me not to cancel the engagement, falling back on her tired, stressed from work excuse. I wasn't buying it anymore. "Give me the ring and your key," I told her. "We'll talk about this on the weekend." She finally relented and left. Just to be safe, I had the locks rekeyed the very next day. Since then, Chloe has been sending a constant stream of texts, filled with apologies and declarations of love, insisting she just got swept up and wanted to show me off to her friends. I wasn't buying it, and as another commenter pointed out, it was more likely she was trying to show her friends she had me wrapped around her finger and that you will allow her, and them, to do whatever they want. Her inner circle has also been texting me, calling me toxic, fragile, and saying they knew I wasn't man enough for Chloe. My own friends, who've known Chloe for 2 years, are in shock. They can't believe she could change so drastically and wonder if I'm leaving something out, if I did something to provoke this. Right now, I'm just trying to process how the future I had planned could collapse in just a few short weeks. Ultimately, the story reveals a hard truth: a person's true colors will always come out, and sometimes the biggest red flags are the friends they keep hidden. It's better to see them before you walk down the aisle than after. What would you have done in this situation? At what point would you have decided enough was enough?